Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video on Cobblers Vlogs, where today we are here with another Opposition View live video. This wasn't scheduled to happen. Obviously, we usually do one of these before every single game. And I couldn't find an Ipswich Town fan. They didn't seem to exist. None of them seemed to want to reply to me. But Adam has been an absolute hero. And literally 20 minutes ago, he sent me a message on Twitter and said, I'll come on, I'll save you, I'll talk about Ipswich, because that's what he loves to do, and I love to talk about the Cobblers. So I thought, why not? Let's get him on. Let's see how many people join. Luke NTFC's already here, but Luke NTFC's here for every single live stream. So, it's the least we expect from him. So thank you for joining us, Luke. A massive thank you to Adam for joining us as well. Adam, first of all, lockdown started to ease now in England, pubs are open, all this sort of stuff. Are you managing to get out and about and do a bit more?
Yeah, well, I actually work for a pub company, so it's been really, really tough, obviously, this lockdown. But obviously, last Monday's been really, really good. Sadly, myself, I haven't been out to any pubs yet, but I do plan on venturing out shortly. Hopefully, when the season ends, and I can toast good riddance to this football season on behalf of all Ipswich Town supporters. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Good stuff, and I'm definitely trying to make the most of it as well. I turned 18 at the start of April, so I've been out a couple of times and making the most of that. So good to hear that you're back in business and back working as well. And you mentioned toasting the season off and completely forgetting about it. And I think another reason that we're going to maybe completely forget about this season is because of what we've heard in the last 24 hours. I don't think we can come on here and talk about tomorrow night's game and just ignore what's gone on in the media. Those of you that are watching that haven't seen or don't know, we're being told about this proposal for a new European Super League, which all of the big six teams in England, so that's Liverpool, Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, have all signed up for and have all all want to join. And it's obviously going to be with European teams, you've got the likes of Juventus, Barcelona, Real Madrid, and it quite frankly is a disgrace from every single club that's involved in it. It's come from pure greed from owners, and it's a way that I think, if this goes ahead, which I don't think it will, considering the support that's behind it, but if this goes ahead, it will ruin English football. All the money in English football, or a high percentage of the money from English football, comes from those six clubs. It filters down through the EFL. I think maybe more so us than Ipswich. Obviously, Ipswich, I think we can safely say, are a much bigger club than us. But I think if that Super League happens, I don't think I will have a football club to support in 5 years, because the money just won't be there in football. But there's a part of me that is also saying, go away, go away and do your Super League. We don't want you here. If you don't want to be here, go away. We don't care about you anymore. And maybe that will sort out the massive financial problems and infrastructure problems that we've got in our game at the minute. So that's kind of my take on it. I just think, it's out of pure greed. Gary Neville's done it well. Jamie Carragher, loads of journalists have written fantastic articles. So we don't need me rambling on about it kind of any more than I have already. But Adam, I assume you probably echo everything I've kind of just said there. Is there anything you kind of want to add to that?
No, you're spot on, Matt. I would say I think it probably doesn't stem from the supporters of a lot of these clubs. I think we have to look in the boardrooms to a lot of the problems that this has started from. So I can't imagine there's Manchester United fans from Stretford, Manchester City fans from Moss Side, Liverpool fans from Toxteth, working class areas of the country that have absolutely nothing in common with their rich, wealthy, out of touch owners. And I think it's a massive power grab. And let's be honest, I mean, we watch the Champions League now. After the first 3 or so rounds of games, you sort of know what's going to happen. It becomes quite boring anyway. So I don't know what on earth a Super League is going to look like when Man United and Barcelona play one another for 10 seasons in a row. It's going to be dull as dishwater. But I think the anger and the outpouring of anger that's come about as a result of this, I think, should hopefully be enough to stop this dead in its tracks. But we'll see. I think it's gonna rumble on for a long time now. I think it's going to overshadow anything that happens this season.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And if it kind of overshadows the Cobblers getting relegated, I'm probably not going to be complaining, to be fair. But yeah, just like we say, complete money grab. And I said to my dad earlier, like, the Premier League has just become kind of Crystal Palace versus Burnley. I'm not going to want to sit and watch that, But then he also said, well, what about if it's Manchester United versus Juventus for 15th in the Super League, where whoever finishes bottom out then doesn't get relegated? It's going to be exactly the same concept, isn't it? So that was another valid point. And this whole no relegation, the fact that they're going to be in it, like you say, Man United playing Barcelona for 10 years in a row, it is going to be really dull. So that's kind of our thoughts on it. A couple of you in the comments already saying #stop the Super League, and don't bring that straight to this comment section. Get it on Twitter, get it on Instagram as well as bringing it here as well. So I think everybody is united behind this, and it's good to see that so many people. I knew there would be kind of an outpour of kind of hate towards it and condemnation, I think is the right word, isn't it? But I didn't think there'd be as much as there actually is. I knew there'd be a lot, but every single tweet I see on Twitter now is about this. That it's rare that I don't see a tweet that's kind of about this anymore. Whether it's even a serious one or a joke or something like that, everything is about this. So it's good to see that everybody's uniting together. Anyway, Adam, we've got a game of football to talk about. Obviously, the Cobblers take on Ipswich Town tomorrow evening. You're obviously an Ipswich Town fan, and I think it may even be fair to say that neither of us are actually particularly looking forward to this game.
No.
We obviously on Friday night lost to our bitter rivals from down the road, Peterborough. So we're all a bit down in the dumps about that. We're now 4 points adrift of being saved. Wigan Athletic in 20th with 44. We're there in 21st with 40. Ipswich are obviously up there in 9th at the minute. What I would do to be in 9th? Oh my lord! You're up there in 9th with 61 points, having played 41 games. You're only 4 points off the playoffs. So that's maybe still an opportunity. But just talk to us about your season so far. Just talk us through it and how it's gone so far.
Okay. Well, I hope you all try and stay awake when I talk about this season. This season's been an enormous disappointment in so many ways. It's been marred by bizarre goings on with our manager, off the pitch stuff. Obviously, we've got a new manager now. There's been an American takeover, and it's really weird because the positivity that's going off the pitch, the club finally looks like it's dragging itself into the 21st century. There's going to be a proper backroom staff put in place. Mark Ashton's dropping down from Bristol City to become our CEO. We look like we're finally going to drag ourselves into the 21st century as a football club. Yet everything on the pitch is an absolute disaster. And I know what you said, how you'd love to finish 9th. And I do appreciate that obviously there's other clubs struggling down the bottom of the table, so maybe finishing 9th or 10th it isn't all that bad. But not trying to be big-headed here, but a club like Ipswich, we should be doing so much better in this division. With our budget, we should have been looking at top 2 this season. But I think it's a continuation of what happened last year. We started like a train last season, and then from October our form nosedived into relegation form effectively until COVID stopped the season. And then what we've found out since from Paul Cook is that I think the length of time that we went from obviously stopping playing in March, season then didn't restart again until September. From the sounds of things, our players aren't fit enough and the conditioning's not good enough. They're not strong enough. And as the season's gone on, we've got progressively worse. And some of our performances of late have been utter garbage. We can't score. We don't take any chances. I think yourselves, Bristol Rovers, and maybe one other have scored less goals than we have this season. Says it all. Our goal difference is 0. We've played 41 games. We've scored 41 goals. We've conceded 41 goals. I mean, that's bang average, whichever way you dress it up. But yeah, it's been a bit of a circus off the pitch as well. Our owner came out, made some bizarre comments in December. Paul Lambert. I mean, if he said he'd played for big clubs once, he said it 1,000 times in press conferences that he played for Borussia Dortmund to wind supporters up. He would say we played well when we evidently didn't. Tried to get us to play some kind of bizarre passing out from the back style of football that was completely ill-suited to our players. And this is no disrespect to League One, but the fact that we're 4 points adrift, probably 5 if you look at the goal difference, I just think sort of sums up a little bit how poor it's been all season. I mean, the fact that we've been so poor and that we still have an outside chance of the playoffs, I think sort of sums it all up, really. And one thing I've noticed in terms of a difference between the Championship and League One is that sadly, the strikers in League One just aren't quite good enough. There's certain games that we should never have taken points from, whereas just the opposition just haven't had good enough strikers, and that's a massive fundamental difference. And that's where Ipswich have let themselves down. I mean, for instance, we were linked with Johnson Clark-Harris in the summer. We end up signing Ollie Hawkins, who scored like 2 goals in 100-odd league appearances. So there you go. It's just been a massive disappointment, Matt, and there is light at the end of the tunnel, but we've got about 30 players out of contract. So, and there's a train of thought amongst the Ipswich fan base to let them all go and start again. It's that bad. There's the affinity between the club at the moment, the supporters, and the players on the pitch. I don't think has ever been lower. I don't think there's been a more disliked group of Ipswich Town players in my entire history of watching them. It's a sad state of affairs at the moment at Portman Road, really, on the pitch anyway.
Yeah, lots to take from that answer. I think the last point you made about the players, I think you could certainly say that about what it's like down here, especially the way I feel about them at the moment. And the other point you made about is the lack of quality in League One season. This has certainly been the worst League One. I know. I only remember the last time we were here in 16-17 and 17-18. And teams were much better than they are now. And like you say, to be 4 points off the playoffs, to have been playing as bad as you say you've been playing does show how bad it's been. I mean, I'm just looking at the table here. The likes of Portsmouth, we beat them 4-1. They were terrible against us. Oxford weren't particularly impressive. We beat them in the reverse fixture. I mean, how the hell are Blackpool in 5th? And I think it's fair to say that Ipswich, you're a championship club and very much underperforming at the minute. So just talk to us about Paul Lambert then. You mentioned him a couple of times there. What was it that got him sacked? Was it kind of a combination of everything? Was it the play style and his kind of character and the way he was in post-match interviews? Because that was certainly the case with us when we lost Keith Curle.
I think so. I mean, I think I have to go back and talk about, sorry, my wife just walked in and gave me a message. I don't want to sort of dwell too much on not previous seasons, but Lambert came in when we were bottom of the Championship, and Paul Hurst had completely torn up our squad, had signed players that weren't good enough for the Championship, and we were bottom. But we were only about 5 points adrift when he came in October, November. We ended up going down by 14 points in the Championship, and he'd have gone after the end of that season and we should have got a new manager in for League One. But there was a sort of weird air of goodwill about the club at the time where we're thinking that he'll go down, he'll sort this lot out, we'll get better players, we'll piss the league, to coin a phrase, and we'll go straight back up in through League One. Mm-hmm. And last season, there was signs that things weren't quite right. The eve of last season, he called out the owner by saying that he hadn't signed the players that he wanted to. I mean, we signed James Norwood, who was the standout striker in League Two at the time, but he claimed that he hadn't had his first, second choice target signed, and that we were behind in that respect. But the start of the season sort of put all that to one side. We took 27 points from the first 11 games of the season, which is nuts, really. And it looked for all the world that we'd go straight through it. But as I mentioned earlier, form completely nosedived. And we lost to Accrington on Sky in like mid-October. And then I think we took 24 points from 24 remaining games until COVID stopped the season, which is relegation form. And then our owner, and this is another complete subject that we could go off on about our old owner, Marcus Evans, but he gave Paul Lambert. So I just want to try and set the scene. We're playing poorly. We've just been beaten. We've just drawn 0-0 at home with Gillingham. Lincoln have just stuffed us 5-3 away. And then on New Year's Day, we go to Wickham on Sky. And I think if you'd have said to me, the club are going to put a tweet out about Paul Lambert, I think most fans would have said he's going to get sacked. Our owner gave him a 5-year contract extension. And I think it was insane. And then the form just wasn't any better. We slightly picked up in January. But then we lost to Rotherham, Sunderland and Peterborough all in the space of about a week, and that just did for our season. And at the time that COVID was just about to stop the season, there were murmurings in the stands. Paul Lambert sorted it out. sack the board. There was all those kind of chants, and I think COVID stopped the season at a really convenient time for Paul Lambert, because I do think it saved his job. You could argue he should have been sacked in December. He certainly should have been sacked at the end of last season, but time is a great healer, as they say. And obviously 6 months passes from the end of last season to this season, and you're sort of hoping that he learns from his mistakes. And we had a fairly, I say, easy start. It was a pretty kind start, the fixture list. But then we play, the first real test we had was Doncaster away, and we get beaten 4-1. Then we go and lose to Lincoln, and our record against top 6 sides has been dreadful. And trying to implement a style of football that, as I said earlier, was just ill suited to the players that we had. And then coming out after the game and saying we were fantastic, when it was quite blatant for anyone that was watching on iFollow that we weren't playing well. Transfer business was poor, and it was escalating to the point where we've got some fan groups who were putting banners up around the training ground and the actual stadium. It's time to go, Paul, time at the bar and stuff like that. And then our owner came out and backed him again. And as I say, and the actual catalyst for, I think, all of this was the Northampton game at home, where you probably should have beaten us, to be fair. I mean, we were incredibly poor that night, but you probably should have taken more than the point that you did. And I think before that game, there'd been a protest. And then afterwards, Paul Lambert, who'd been basically lying to us and saying everything was great, then came out and said everything's wrong behind the scenes and loads of stuff needs to change. Effectively threw his owner under the bus. Then went on Talk Sport on the Jim White and Simon Jordan show, said the same thing. And I think once you start publicly calling out your owner on national media outlets, I think you're sort of a dead man walking a little bit. And then the irony being is that he got his 3 best results as an Ipswich manager just before he was sacked. We went to Hull and won 1-0, 0-0 draw with Oxford, and then we beat Doncaster, and then he was sacked on the Sunday after that. And Paul Cook's come in, and I don't know what the opposite of new manager bounce is, but that's what Paul Cook's had. It's not a bounce, it's sort of dead, flat, splat on the floor. But yeah, Paul, I could talk so much longer. I don't want to bore you on, all you Northampton guys about Paul Lambert, but I mean, he even came out, he's done an interview with Scottish newspaper to say that he left the club in a decent position. I mean, bearing in mind we were a championship club when he took over, and now we're a mid-table League One club, I'd say he probably hasn't left us in a very good position. But, you keep believing that, Paul. Someone will give you another job, I'm sure, at some point.
So you mentioned Paul Cook's come in, and like you say, it's not had that new manager bounce that you should have had. Let's just go back to that reverse fixture very quickly, because you mentioned, obviously, we probably should have got the 3 points against you there. That was kind of John Brady's, maybe 3rd game in charge, something like that. It was very, very early on in his tenure. And yeah, what happened that night? Was that kind of just when you were kind of in the mid? Is that kind of just what set it all off for you? Because I remember, I didn't watch it. I just remember listening to it on the radio and thinking, it sounds as though we've absolutely battered these. How have we not got 3 points? I don't remember you guys particularly making any headlines apart from Alan Judge and the referee. So just talk to us about what you made of us in that reverse fixture.
Forgot to say that was the infamous Darren Drysdale game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I thought you were good. I thought you were lively. I mean, what I would say again, I think it highlights you didn't really have much going forward in terms of a striker. You had a half decent striker, you'd have beaten us that night. But that performance from Ipswich has been indicative of our season. Just flatter to deceive, poor, don't create any chances, and then make excuses after the game. And yeah, it's not got any better under Paul Cook. That's the sad thing. And I really say this, and I'm not blowing smoke up Northampton Towns. I generally think you've got a good chance of beating us tomorrow night, because I really don't know what Ipswich are going to do. We're going to turn up. We look like we've been half decent defensively. I mean, but 4 0-0 draws in the last 6 games. I mean, you can clearly see where our problem is. The last 2 goals we scored were on Good Friday when we beat Bristol Rovers 2-1. But
wow.
To put that into perspective, we were 2-0 up inside like 10 minutes against Bristol Rovers, and they battered us for about 80 minutes. How they equalised? How, again, because they didn't have a striker, they couldn't break us down. but we've just looked so poor. 0-0 draw against Rochdale, where we don't have a shot on target against the side that shipped as many goals as Rochdale. AFC Wimbledon absolutely took us to pieces. They steamrolled us. And if I was your manager or your coaching team, I'd have watched what AFC Wimbledon did, and I would try and do that and just really get into us, really get into our faces. Every decision surround the ref. Make sure you get plenty of crosses into the box, get at our fullbacks, and you might have a chance. But the problem is, I don't know what team he's going to put out tomorrow. No Ipswich fan does. And no Ipswich fan knows what Ipswich team's going to turn up tomorrow, because it's been like that the last few games. Paul Cook's been trying to find some kind of formula to stumble across, like that phrase, the saying, you throw enough shit at the wall and eventually some of it will stick. That's what he's been trying to do with this group of players. And, so if you wanted to know what to expect from us tomorrow night, I really don't know. We could be good. The reality is we probably won't create any chances. We'll start off well, we'll tire as the game goes on, and I think you've got a really good chance. I really do.
Adam, I have to say, this is absolute music to my ears, and I'm sure everybody joining us live now and everybody watching back will be like, yes, finally. But I think it would be so cobblers for Ipswich to just go, we're going to turn it on tonight. Here's a 5-0 win. That's sort of that. Ipswich just go and batter us.
If that happened, I genuinely would have to apologise to you now, because that hasn't happened all season. We beat Blackpool 4-1. We beat Blackpool 4-1 in October at Bloomfield Road, and we haven't scored more than 2 goals a game since October. So 5-0, Matt, I tell you, put some money on it, mate. If we beat you 5-0, you earn a lot of money if you stick a couple of quid on that. It's just we just don't shoot. We don't create chances. On the surface, you'd think a 0-0 draw at Charlton's a good result on Saturday at the Valley, but we had 2 shots on goal. They were inside the first 2 minutes, so we end up spending 80 plus minutes, and we don't create a chance. We don't shoot. It's so infuriating to watch. But I take comfort in the fact that most of them won't be playing for us ever again. So there we go.
Good stuff. I think, I was going to ask you about your recent form, but you've kind of summed that up really well in there. Obviously, last time out, you 0-0 draw against Charlton. I'm just on the BBC website. And 5 days ago, Ipswich supporters bored of us, says Cook, which, it sounds pretty much how you're feeling about it. And then before that, a week ago, you guys really annoyed me. You lost 3-0 to AFC Wimbledon. We needed you to be battering them. Before that, you drew 0-0 to Milton Keynes and 0-0 to Rochdale, which didn't exactly help us either. So I would ask you who the players are to look out for tomorrow night, who we should be afraid of. But you're shaking your head. It sounds as if there's nobody there. I mean, just looking at names, Teddy Bishop is a name that jumps out at me. Obviously, Alan Judge is out for the season now. James Norwood as well is another name that would jump out at me. Ollie Hawkins, Troy Parrott as well. But it seems as though none of them have really been on form for you. So is there actually anybody that we should be looking out for tomorrow night?
Yeah, if he plays Kane Vincent-Young at right back, he's been out for... Yep. He last played in October 2019. He's been out pretty much ever since then. He's now on his way back. He's had injury after injury, breakdown after breakdown. But he came through 90 minutes on Saturday against Charlton. And he's the only real positive, I think, going into next season, that if we can keep him fit, we generally have a right back that's more than good enough to play in the Championship. He was brilliant. I mean, he played, signing from Colchester. I mean, you guys might have played against him in League Two. He probably played left back for Colchester, but he plays right back for us, and he's just brilliant. And the 9 games that he played for us, he was head and shoulders our best player. James Norwood's injured again, so he probably won't play. Caden Jackson should be tearing it up this season, but doesn't really seem suited to the way Paul Cook plays. Troy Parrott he's on loan, and I think Paul Cook's sort of potentially looking to move away from loan players, because I think if they're not serving a purpose for next season, there's no point moving them on. Teddy Bishop, he's another player that's had massive injury problems. He's a youth player, has come through the ranks, but again, just hasn't had enough minutes under the clock. This season, he's been the first real season that he's managed to put a run of games together, but for a number 10 who doesn't score goals and doesn't shoot, I wouldn't be too worried about him. Guyon Edwards, again, flat as to deceive. Flynn Downs, maybe look out for him. He's a good young player, aggressive, tenacious centre midfielder. Other than that, I generally wouldn't be worried about many of our players, to be honest with you, because I don't know how many of them can be asked at the moment, and if many of them know that they won't be here next season, I really don't know how much effort they're putting into all this, to be honest. So I wouldn't be worried too much about us tomorrow. AFC Wimbledon certainly weren't.
I'm just on your kind of, when I picked out the names there, I was just on your kind of squad, the squad page on your website. And there was a name that I just went straight past, and I just scrolled back up. I was like, oh yeah. And that's Dave Cornell, who was obviously with us last season and was with us for maybe 3 or 4 years, last 3 or 4 years. I remember seeing a clip of him pre-season. I think you went to the Spurs stadium and they beat you, and I remember him being lobbed by Son. How's Cornell been doing? Has he been in the picture very often? Because to me, it seems like he's been on the bench quite a bit, so you haven't really seen much from him.
But very strange, really, because he played in like what is it called again? Is it the Papa John's Trophy or whatever that
Pizza
Cup is? Yeah, the Pizza Cup. He played a couple of games there and looked okay. I think his kicking was slightly better than Thomas Holly's kicking, but just hasn't had the opportunities. And I get the impression he's not that massively highly rated, because our goalkeeper at the moment, Thomas Holly, is he's like 7 foot tall and couldn't catch a cold. And he keeps a lot of clean sheets, but I'm not sure how much that's down to his own ability, or again, as I keep coming back to, the lack of any real sort of top quality strikers in League One. But yeah, there's massive question marks about him as a goalkeeper, and the fact that Cornell can't get in, I do wonder whether they rate him or not. But we haven't really seen an awful lot of him to make too much of a judgment call. But when I saw him, I did think that he could go on and become our number 1, but for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened.
Well, I think tomorrow night it's, I've said it before, kind of the last maybe 10 games, I've said if we lose this, we'll get relegated. If we lose this, we'll get relegated. But I think tomorrow night, it really, really has to be if we lose this, we get relegated, because it will be so, so desperate. I'm just looking at the table now. Rochdale have got a game in hand on us. Rochdale seem to be out of it. We were 3 points a week ago or 2 weeks ago. We were 3 points clear of the relegation zone. Rochdale were down bottom, 7 points off safety. And now they're a point behind us, 5 points adrift from the drop. And I think tomorrow night, if Friday wasn't season defining for us Cobblers, and tomorrow definitely will be, especially against an out of form Ipswich team. I'm just going to quickly have a look at who teams are playing tomorrow. I feel like that's probably going to kind of dampen my spirits even more. Swindon play Portsmouth, so hopefully Pompey should get a win there. Wimbledon play Oxford, so you'd hope for an Oxford win there. Bristol Rovers play MK. They're kind of on the beach, aren't they, MK? So Bristol Rovers will probably end up winning that. Who was I going to look for? Rochdale played Blackpool, so come on, Blackpool. And who else is down there with us? I think that's all of them, isn't it? Wigan, who do they play? Wigan. They play Shrewsbury, so yeah, they're pretty much on the beach as well. So Wigan, don't be surprised to see Wigan win tomorrow night. So yeah, our run-in is definitely, this is the only game. I didn't see us winning it, an hour ago, since you've come on and told me all about how bad it's car. But this is the only game that I think we at least have a chance of not even getting 3 points, but a point from, because we play Blackpool, we play Gillingham away, and we play Sunderland on the last day of the season away, which is just, unbelievably tough. And I'm kind of hoping that they get their status sorted out by the time we go to play them, so that they're maybe
there's hoping, yeah.
The question I want to ask you before tomorrow is who the worst team that you've played this season in terms of down here in the relegation zone? Tell us who you think are going to be the 4 that go down, and say us if you want. I don't blame.
Well, do you know what? You weren't the worst team I've seen at Portman Road this season. Swindon beat us 3-2 at Portman Road, and Scott Twine scored an absolute thunder bastard, and that was really good. Bristol Rovers looked okay. They weren't very good at the Memorial Stadium, but we played them on the second game of the season, so it's difficult to make a judgment call based on then. Who else is it? Wigan, we played them first game of the season, so again, they're a completely different side now. drew 0-0 with, of course, we drew 0-0 at their place because we don't score goals. We've still got to play Swindon away in a couple of weeks' time. We've still got to play FC Wimbledon at home because we were meant to play Wimbledon in December, but we had a run of games like your game was. We were meant to play you on Boxing Day. It got called off because of COVID. So we only played Wimbledon for the first time the other night. We've still got to play them at home. I mean, they were good against us. They've seemed to hit form at the right time. Do you know what? I find it really difficult. There's teams in and around that, Shrewsbury weren't brilliant when we played them, but even then, I can't hand on heart categorically say anybody's looked dreadful because we've been pretty poor in most of our games. Peterborough beat us 1-0 and didn't even have a shot on target. We scored an own goal, so they weren't even that good when they played us. Sunderland weren't brilliant. I mean, I don't know. I just haven't really been massively impressed by loads of sides. I don't want to come across as arrogant. It's just I haven't seen a lot of good football at Portman Road at all this season. It's just been pretty poor. Doncaster, I thought were probably one of the best sides I saw at Portman Road this season. That was just before Darren Moore got sacked. But in terms of the sides at the bottom, I'd probably say Bristol Rovers played some good stuff. They had a lad, who was the lad who scored? I think at Westbrook. They had a lad on loan from Chelsea, looked really good, scored their goal. But they've just nosedived since they've played us. They can't seem to buy a win. And I think, as I say, I think it is do or die for you guys tomorrow night. I think if you can't get a win against us, and I think when you look at the form, Wigan are winning games, Wimbledon are winning games. As you say, I think this is as good a chance as you'll get tomorrow night. Because I think AFC Wimbledon, it's not an easy place for Oxford to go. Swindon are a basket case. I think they're probably already down. And as I say, I think. And then who was playing Blackpool? Did you say was it Wigan? Did you say play Blackpool?
Rochdale. It might have been Bristol Rovers. I can't remember. Let me just have a quick look.
You see, Rochdale. I think you said, wasn't it?
Yeah, Rochdale. Yeah.
You see Blackpool in some really good form, but Rochdale, more than capable of scoring goals against teams, aren't they? So I just don't think you can call it. It's so unpredictable. It's so massively unpredictable. But I think Ipswich are fairly predictable. As I say, if I was your coaching style, I would really be watching how Wimbledon played against us and really getting into us. I mean, they were right on at us. They were in the ref's ear. We had a player centre, so we were inside 25 minutes. We were 2-0 down and had man down. And all I'd say to Northampton fans, if you want to get an idea of what it's like at Ipswich, listen to Paul Cook's post-match interview after Wimbledon. One, to see how mad his voice is. His voice changes. I don't know if you've heard Paul Cook interviewed. His voice starts at one sort of level. Because he's been shouting so often during the game, it sort of changes and it sounds like two different people talking. But just listen to what he says and just how he absolutely lays into the side. And then his press conference on Friday was even more alarming. He said he'd be like Demolition Man. There's going to be a lot of pain in the next few weeks for a lot of people at Ipswich because it's going to a lot of change. So, as I say, I think at the moment Ipswich are a big club in only name. It's nothing to do with what we're doing on the pitch at all. I wouldn't be worried at all if I was a Northampton Town supporter, genuinely.
Well, you've certainly injected some confidence into us, and I'm sure I'll be positive for the game tomorrow night, and then it will all just come crashing down. They'll probably beat us 1-0 in the 95th minute or something.
There won't be many goals. There won't be many goals.
Exactly,
there won't be many goals.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. We'll just finish off with a quick score prediction from you, please, and any goal scorers as well.
It will probably be 0-0, or it will be incredibly tight. And I think you'll probably want it more than us. So I'm going to go 1-0 Northampton. And apologies, I'm not quite sure who's going to score for you guys. I'll probably put own goal. One of our defenders will score an own goal.
That's a safe one, isn't it? George has kind of contrasted you a little bit. He's gone for 3-2 Ipswich. So that could be interesting. Maybe a bit more goals there. But
I'll tell you what, George.
Adam has told us that you don't score any goals.
If there's 5 goals in that game tomorrow night, I'll be amazed. Go and have a look at the odds on over like 4.5 goals tomorrow night, and you'll see how unlikely that is tomorrow.
Great stuff. Well, hopefully we don't care how many goals, whether it's 7-0 or whether it's 1-0, we have to win tomorrow night's game. And, I've kind of every game in kind of that, you get caught up in post-match emotion. You kind of think, oh, we're relegated. Screw this, we're relegated. And then you think about it, you look back, you think, hang on, we're only a couple of points, away from the drop here. We can still very much stay up. But I think tomorrow, that post-match kind of anger will probably come if we lose, and then it will stay that feeling of we're down now. And if we win tomorrow, I'll be right back in it. I'll be like, yes, we're staying up. There's absolutely no way we're not going down. So it's going to be really interesting. And I think, to have any chance whatsoever, we have to win tomorrow night. So that's everything from us. Thank you very much to everybody who's joined us. I see as the Liverpool game hit half time, the viewing number kind of just went like that. So that's good to see. So thanks very much to Adam for saving us as well at the last second and coming on and speaking to us. It's been a pleasure having you on. Thanks to everybody who's joined us as well, watching this live. Everybody who's watching it back as a video as well. Let us know how you're feeling about the game in the comments. And if you could hit the like button, that would be awesome. Set off that YouTube algorithm and all that good stuff. So that's going to be it from us. Thank you very much to Adam. Thank you to everybody for watching. Hopefully we get a win tomorrow night. And until next time, we will see you all later. Bye-bye.